weather claims another 8 lives. Good evening. A night and a day of Arctic weather has brought more deaths and virtually paralyzed parts of the country. The Central Electricity Generating Board says it's working flat out to meet demand. As high winds brought down the temperatures again tonight, they had to import power from both France and Scotland. During the day, demand reached another new record, and all available power sources were called upon.
A cold spell could happen again, and the Central Electricity Generating Board have to be prepared for a heavy demand. They have to be able to predict in advance how much electricity will be needed at any time. Here at the National Control Centre, they control the distribution of power across the country. It's done by transferring power from one region to another. They have to match the output with the demand, a demand which varies all the time. But the scientists know from the past that there's a pattern in the daily demand, and that the pattern changes from season to season. In winter, more lights and heaters are used. But whatever the season, there always seems to be a daily peak around 5 o'clock. That's when most people start to come home. This sudden rise in demand is something scientists can predict will happen, and they have to be able to cope with it. They do it by calling upon a special kind of power station, one that can provide electricity at a few seconds' notice. It's a new hydroelectric scheme at Dinorwic, set in the heart of the Welsh mountains.
And 4975 at number 6, please.
There's a lake at the top and another at the bottom of the mountain, with a power station inside it. When electricity is needed, millions of litres of water are released from the upper lake, down a pipeline and through the power station to the lake below. Electricity is generated as the water falls from one lake to the other. To get the water back to the top lake, the scientists make use of another pattern in the daily demand for electricity. They wait till night time, when the demand for power is low, and use electricity from other power stations to pump the water back up. It's called a pumped storage power station. The weather influences demand too. To predict the effect of the weather, scientists used the daily forecast.
Here's the weather situation for tomorrow. We've got a high pressure which has been situated to the west of Scotland, due to move rapidly southeast, and as a result the cold flow of air which was coming from the continent is now due to swing round to the south, and as a result become very much milder. As you can see, there are no fronts across the country at all, and there will be no cloud on that, and a very bright day indeed. Now, in terms of demands, this is looking like on the peak tomorrow evening at nearly 44,000 megawatts.
Demand is influenced by something else too.
Yes, John, just a chat about these TVs tonight. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot to worry about, except the usual early evening pickup that we expect on EastEnders. Time to finish at 2000 as usual. They're forecast to 900 for this, which is really what we expect. This is last week's chart, and it seems to bear out that figure. So if we can ensure that we've got adequate plant spinning at Dinorwic, that should take care of it.
Don't bother ringing me. I won't be home.
The other transfer shortly. Just a moment, I've got a TV pickup. Hold on.
It's your turn to be fluffy. No, it's not.
A lot of water's used too, and water needs electricity to pump it up.
Andrew, hurry up! All right, I'm just coming.
Patterns are important for scientists, so they're interested in all sorts of patterns, like the regular rise and fall of the tides. To know the time of the tide is important for boats, so as they don't get stranded. There's a gap of about 12.5 hours between each high tide, but here it is speeded up. The tide affects many rivers, like the Thames in London, where the Port of London Authority keeps a constant check on the shipping.
Could you give me the name of the vessel ahead of me, Alice?
Well, did he stand by one moment?
Okay.
Barbara Chris, what's a vessel in front of him?
Chris. Eberhard.
It's the vessel Eberhard, Barbara Chris, over.
Roger, thank you. Eberhard, Barbara, Christian.
They also keep a check on the tides. The height of the high and low tide is measured by gauges up and down the Thames. This is Tilbury, and the gauge here is in the hut on top of the sea wall. When the tide's out, like it is now, it's a long way up to the hut. The hut is perched on a tube which goes down to the river bed. Inside the tube, there's a float which sits on top of the water. As the tide comes in and out, the float goes up and down. The movement is recorded by a pen on a rotating chart. The graphs show the repeating pattern of the rise and fall of the tides for the last few days. Back at base, the times and heights of the tides are marked off. They're recorded in a daily log, and the same is done with all the other tide gauges along the Thames. From all these measurements, a yearly analysis of the tides is produced. The heights of the tides in the Thames have been measured for many years, as far back as 1852. The more measurements there are, the easier it is for scientists to be able to see a pattern. Nowadays, measurements of high and low water for tides up and down the country are fed into a computer. The pattern for the tides can then be predicted in advance in tide tables. These help the captains of large ships to plan their passage along a river like the Thames according to the tides. On the Thames, there's always a Port of London officer on duty to make sure the ships are keeping to the right section of the river and they're keeping up with the rise and fall of the tide. In the operations room, they can also check through television links and repeater gauges the actual height of the tide recorded on the river gauges. This information is broadcast to the ships every half an hour.
All ships, Grayson Radio, river broadcast for 1300. Visibility now generally half a mile in all areas. Tidal information tide at Walton, 1.6. Margate, 1.7. Shearing Sands, 1.7. Southend, 1.8. And Tilbury, 1.4. End of the river broadcast, Greater Radio.
Gravesend Radio, this is Ola.
Too low a tide can be dangerous for shipping, and too high a tide can cause problems with flooding.
There's 6 cables in, Peter, at the North Edinburgh.
It's important to keep a check on the actual height of the tide, as it can vary from the predicted height. One reason for this is the weather, and in 1953 this caused flooding near the mouth of the Thames.
Canvey Island suffered worst of all. When the protecting wall was breached, the water came swirling through in a tremendous torrent, smashing homes and sweeping all before it. Most of the damage was done and the lives lost, over 100 it's feared, in the first rush of the flood. Several hundred people were still reported missing on Canvey when these vivid pictures were filmed.
The tide recorded was particularly high. It was the result of a storm which produced a huge hump of water in the North Sea. Blown by a northerly wind, the water piled up against the coasts of Britain and Holland, causing disastrous floods. Scientists knew that with the same pattern of weather and a very high tide, there was a chance flooding might happen again. So they decided to build a barrier across the Thames to prevent the surge coming up the river. The barrier consists of 9 piers with gates in between. The gates rest on the river floor and can be raised to hold back the tide coming from the sea if a particularly high tide is predicted. Many lives could be saved by this barrier. Lives can be saved through the discovery of patterns in the field of medicine too.
Hello, Dr. Bailey here. You're bleeping me. Is he in pain?
Doctors study illnesses and sort out the patterns of the patient's symptoms.
Can you tell me where the pain is?
The pain is in between the middle of the stomach.
How many times have you been sick?
Just two, three of us people.
And have you had any diarrhea?
I just now went, but it was color is same. It's all right.
Normal colour?
Normal color.
No blood or anything?
No blood, nothing.
Right.
I vomited everything what I ate in party.
Can I just have a quick look at your tummy?
Yes, please.
Would you just like to put that leg flat? And then put your arms by your side. Just have a look at you. That's quite sore.
It's all right here.
Right.
Here.
Okay.
With her questions and examination, she can establish the pattern of symptoms and diagnose the illness and the cure.
Same thing.
Okay. I think Mr. Shaw, it looks as if you might have appendicitis.
An operation is the answer in this case. Prevention of diseases by immunization or vaccination was the result of a scientist noticing a pattern a long time ago. His name was Edward Jenner, and he was a country doctor in the 18th century. At that time, a disease which was killing many people was smallpox. Jenner noticed that some of the milkmaids in his area didn't seem to catch smallpox, but that the cows they milked often developed cowpox sores on their teats, and that these sores often spread to the milkmaids' hands. Did the cowpox give the milkmaids protection against smallpox? To find out, Jenner took some cowpox fluid from the sores and inserted it into 2 scratches he made in the arm of a healthy boy. He later tried to give the boy smallpox in the same way, but the boy didn't catch the disease. It worked. Thanks to Jenner, vaccination against smallpox has been used worldwide, and the disease has now been wiped out. But there have been other diseases which have been all but wiped out in a similar way. In the 1940s, thousands of children died from diphtheria as they had no protection against it. Epidemic followed epidemic. There was a national scare and a vaccination program was started. This film, made in 1948, urged all parents to have their children immunized or protected against diphtheria.
This boy is not expected to live. He was not immunized.
Every 15 minutes, a child is taken ill with diphtheria. Every 5 hours, a child dies from diphtheria. Last year, 51,163 people, mostly children, were attacked.
This child need not have died. He could have been immunized and so protected against diphtheria.
Then there was polio, which killed and crippled many in the 1940s and 50s. Once again, an immunization program was started and the disease became under control. Nowadays, vaccines for these diseases are manufactured in great numbers, and modern scientific research has meant that more and more diseases have been brought under control. Vaccines are now available for all sorts of diseases.
Hello. Hello. Oliver's first one today.
Yes.
Is you quite well?
Yes.
You're quite well today?
Yes, fine, yeah.
No problem.
Shall I take the jumper off?
Jumper right off there.
Is that a triple? Triple.
All parents are offered a combined triple vaccine for diphtheria, tetanus and whooping cough. They are also offered vaccines against polio and measles, and later on against tuberculosis and rubella. It's part of a routine attempt to reduce the chance of anyone catching these potentially dangerous diseases. As new diseases threaten our lives, scientists continue to search for the patterns in their investigations, which could mean, for many people, the difference between life and death.
Pick him up. Pick him up.